Hi, this is Toby, and today I'm delighted to introduce you to Mark Packard, part of our fierce team. Mark is our audio engineer, our sound engineer, our music mixer. He's the publisher of the podcast. He's all the things behind the scenes that nobody sees happening. And it's more work, I think, than I have to do to get this podcast out. So I'd like to introduce you to Mark, who works with Number 3 Productions, which is a division of Grace Point Publishing. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Toby.
So what kind of things do you have to think about when you're putting a podcast together?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a lot easier now than it was about 2 years ago when I really got into the podcast realm, because I came from music production into podcast production. What I really try to look for, if there's like one big answer to that, is how the listener perceives it. I think that's the most important part. So there's technical aspects, like I always make sure the sound levels are accurate. And if there's like a siren in the background, I'll cut that out, So there's simple things that go into everything, but it's really looking into how the person's going to hear it, or in our case, how the person's going to see it.
Right.
So moving the cameras around, especially when there's multiple people on your interviews, and seeing where those are going to be placed.
Yeah.
My favorite part is mixing the music in.
Oh, that's the favorite part, and I love it. And I love Lisa's song, who's the other member of our fierce team.
It's so good.
Yeah. I love how it all comes together. And I most especially love that I don't have to worry about how to do it.
That's what Karen, the other current podcast in production right now, says too. She's like, I just give it to you and it's done.
And it's done. It gets posted everywhere, and you pull out little promo videos to create. It's just magic, and I love that. So I'm so thankful for everything that you do, and that we've been able to team up on this and get this podcast out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a good journey so far, and it's just started.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite episode?
The one that the first one with Justin Brooks was really good. But I've worked with Justin a couple times before, so I knew that one was going to be good. And I mean, they're all good. Let me say that for sure. Catherine Bell, just because it was Catherine Bell, that was a really cool one. But the one that personally got me, and I don't remember all their names, but was the one with the 4 or 5.
Oh,
four guys.
Yes.
I can't remember
all
their
they
names.
wanted was justice. That was what I titled it. Chris and Charles and Clifton. And that is a powerful one. And actually, I'm going to be meeting up with them again in a couple weeks. So they live here in the DC area, and they're having another event, and I'm going to go there. And I get text messages from Chris every now and then. And he's like, you're just doing awesome things, and we need to get together. And so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that was a pretty heartbreaking episode, I think. But also really inspiring.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is it was like when you hear what happened and wrongful imprisonment, I didn't even have words. And then when you hear, I would have never guessed that they were in prison for 30 years from that interview if I didn't know.
I know.
I feel like I would have just been broken, completely done. And they're just out there I'm getting goosebumps right now.
Yeah, they're out there helping other people who are getting out of prison, and they're being spokespersons in the reentry community in Washington, D.C. And, and you're right. Statistics and history would have had them being homeless in a gutter, and they're not. And I think that says a lot about them. And, when I first met them, it was at a book signing for Thomas Dibdall's book, which featured them. And I saw there was 6 of them there. I only got 4 on the podcast, but I thought, who are all these preachers that we have here? Because they're so dressed up and they just look so classy. And I thought, wow, these men are somebody. Who are they going to be? And then it turns out they're these men who spent 25 and 32 and 36 years in prison. Just blew my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah. So I think, we were going to talk a little bit about some aspects of the podcast today. And so I'm just going to let you kind of lead that part of it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, go into the questions and stuff on your side of it. Yeah. Let's go into that. So this will be posted as a full video. So I'll give a little introduction, and then we're going to cut it into promos too, which is cool. But was it a month ago? One of the members of the Grace Point Publishing team who did a lot of work editing on your book, on your book, Living with Conviction, Which, side note for everybody watching this, I also had the honor of producing that audiobook.
The audiobook, that's right. That was
the
first project I did with Mark, my audiobook, and that was pretty exciting.
That was a good time for sure. That was my first, I know I've told you this, but that was my first like audiobook that I produced solely front to back.
Wow.
And so it was a learning process for me too. Like I'd done like bits and pieces of other ones and produced lots of podcasts, but that was the first like start to finish recording everything I'd ever done. And it was, I was like, oh man, I underestimated the time that it's going to go. Yes. But it came out really good.
It did come out good, and it was a great process, and you made it really smooth. And you'd call me and go, we need to re-record this line because you went. And it's like, how can you hear that? So I think it was great.
Yeah, I don't know how I got those ears, but I do. There's things I hear that nobody else seems to.
I think you need them.
Yeah, exactly. May I tell actually one more story just on my process from that I like to share? So there's Seth MacFarlane. He's the creator of like Family Guy and American Dad and a bunch of stuff. And I don't know much about him as a person. Like I don't know if I align with his personality or anything, but he is a fabulous creator and creative. And one thing that has stuck with me for years is he said in an interview once, he always uses live orchestration from well-known composers on his shows. And he says, to the average listener, they can't really tell if I created it with a computer or in a studio or with the composer. But I know that the subconscious picks up on the high quality of it. That's how I feel with my production. Like, I know nobody's going to really notice this, but subconsciously they're going to hear the difference. So that was always really inspiring.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And we do have live orchestra on my podcast, which is so exciting. Yeah.
It's so cool. I love that so much. But okay, so Toby, now we'll switch gears, and I'm gonna play interviewer for you.
Okay,
for a moment now.
Cool.
So first question: what is a fierce conversation to you, and how do fierce conversations make you feel?
A fierce conversation to me is something that most people avoid talking about, like the tragedy of losing a child, or going through a divorce, or having a miscarriage, or being wrongly imprisoned for a crime you didn't commit, or working hard to free others who are imprisoned, and all the work that goes on behind that. It's a conversation that isn't soft, and it isn't easy, and it often brings tears or emotion to the surface. And, there are two definitions of fears. The most popular one is having or displaying an intense or fierce aggressiveness. That's not the definition I use. I like the definition of showing a heartfelt and powerful intensity. So it's believing strongly in something that you just have to speak up and speak out about because it just burns inside of you. And, there's lessons in those conversations, and there's feelings and emotions in those conversations. And there's moments that stick in people's mind and they replay over and over and over. And to me, that's what a fierce conversation is.
I like that. It's so important because it's so easy to hide behind not wanting to talk about things.
Right.
But I love that definition of, I've heard it many times, but I heard it differently, is it's so fierce that you have to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That drive. I know the answer to this next one, but I'm going to ask it. Are you afraid to have fierce conversations?
Oh, man. No, I am never afraid of a fierce conversation. What I'm afraid of is being on an elevator with somebody I don't know and they want to talk to me about the weather. That I can't do well. And that's just not me. I think conversations need to have a purpose. They need to have an impact. They need to be meaningful. And I'm not into small talk or, superfluous, just conversations over a cup of tea. That's just not me. In fact, I can't even stand to do it. When somebody wants to have a fluffy little conversation with me, I find it really hard to stay there and contribute because it just almost is a waste of my time, that small talk stuff.
I get that for sure. I'm actually really good at small talk because I spent so many years working in restaurants that I can talk about anything but I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. My husband and my mother are excellent at it. And they always get in these long conversations, and I'm standing next to them going, come on, we got things to do, and I think there's a place for that. I think we need people like that too, because that is a service to others to just be able to make them feel like you care about their day. But, I just never developed that.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense for sure. It's good to have both, lots of types of people in the world. Okay. Next one. Would your younger self, because you've written a memoir,
Yes.
beautiful memoir, and you have a book of poetry out, and you have, is it 5
Three
workbooks?
workbooks. Three workbooks.
Okay. There must be 2 more coming. That must be why I thought.
Yes. Yeah, there are more
2
coming.
somewhere.
That's for sure.
But do you think your younger self, young Toby, would have sought out a book or the workbooks similar to ones that you wrote? Is that something you would have been looking for as a young Toby?
That's kind of a hard question because the young Toby should have been looking for those things. But I think the young Toby was just kind of lost and didn't even know where she was going or what life was about. And she was just kind of playing a role as a mother and a corporate employee and a volunteer for her son's activities and a wife. And she didn't spend very much time on just being Toby. And I think that's part of what the problem was that, caused my catastrophic break of helping someone escape from prison and throwing my whole life away and having to start over. I think if I had taken time as a young Toby to read some things like the things I'm writing now, life would have been different. But unfortunately, I didn't seek those things out.
Right. You weren't in the place for them yet. I can relate to that one for sure. I think too, like, it's so interesting because I know your story. Not as well as you do, but I mean, I've listened to it.
You know it just about as well as anybody besides me.
But I think that it's interesting because your story is like so relatable where you were at when you got to the prison break. And I feel like that many people would have followed that same path if they were in the same situation you were in. It's just not many people are in that place.
When I was in prison, of course, my story was all over the news. I got letters, dozens of letters from women I never knew in states that I'd never even visited who wrote to me, and they all said the same thing. I saw your story on the news and I had to write to you and tell you, I know exactly how you feel. That could have been me. I could see myself in your shoes. And so I would just want you to know that, I'm praying for you and sending you good wishes and hoping you come out of this. So so many women can relate, which really surprised me too, because I felt like I was going to be a pariah and nobody could relate to, anything I'd done or said, but that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah. Yeah. We all get to those places. Well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us, myself included, get to those places of extreme choice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to next question. I'm going to combine these two that I have.
Okay.
So let's say that young Toby did seek out these books. As your younger self, where would you have gone to buy those books or find those books? And now, where would you find those books at?
Well, I'm old. There was no internet when I was young, and there was no cell phones when I was young. So I would have gone to my local bookstore or to the library. I really this week I went to the library and there's a book I really want to read, but I don't want to buy it because I don't think it's going to be one I want to keep. I put it on my wish list at the library. Well, yesterday I went to the library and I had 14 books to pick up. And it's like, oh my, how am I going to read these in 3 weeks, But I would have probably gone to the library and looked for a book, actually, when I was younger.
What about now? Where do you think you still go to the library yourself?
I still go to the library. There's something about a library that what a gift libraries are to the world, to have all these books of all topics and all authors that you can, just read for free and bring back when you're done. I just think libraries are such a blessing. And by the way, my book is in my local library and in a couple other libraries too. So that's kind of exciting.
That's awesome.
But but the thing is, today I don't go to the library and just wander through the stacks and pick one out. Occasionally I do, right. But usually I a book comes up in some kind of a news article or someone suggests it to me. And so I go to the library and I look it up in their digital search and then I put it on my wait list. And I think that's kind of sad because I discovered so many hidden gems just by wandering through the library. Although I will tell you that I picked up 14 books I had on hold, but I also checked out 3 more that caught my eye as I walked by. So I still do that, just not as much. So today I'd probably look in the library, but unfortunately, I'd probably say I'd do a search on Amazon. That's usually where I go to first, is do a search on Amazon and I read about the book. And then I decide, is this a book I want to keep forever or a book I just want to read? And if it's a book I just want to read, I go to the library website and put it on my hold list. So that's kind of my pattern today. But I love independent little bookstores. And, my husband and I love to go for car rides. And we just get in the car and we don't have a destination and we don't use Google Maps. We just say, oh, let's turn left here. Let's turn right here, And inevitably, so many of the times we'll pass by a little bookstore and always we have to stop. And I have to go in and I love the feel of those little bookstores. And I always buy something. That was my dream when I was in prison, that I wanted to get out of prison and work at a bookstore. But my real dream has always been to own a bookstore and, make it also be a gathering place. I don't know, maybe put a coffee shop or something in there too, and have a place where people just come and hang out, but they're surrounded by books.
I love that. That I didn't know about you. That's really cool. I will, if I may, add just a little bit of my side to libraries, because I have, growing up, we didn't really have a TV or anything. And I was homeschooled. I was only one of us 4, but I was homeschooled all the way through high school. And we went to libraries all the time. And there's one here in Colorado Springs that I used to go to when I was like 6, 7, 8, so 30 years ago. And I just recently went back there again about 6 months ago for the first time, probably since then. And just like, 1, the memories from childhood, but 2, it's just that walking through the aisles of books and you can feel the knowledge of all those authors just permeating into your brain, it feels like. But your audiobook is in our local library.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to put into the show notes.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's put in the show notes how people can suggest it to their library.
Yeah.
I think that's
it's
awesome.
It's really the best way to support an author, because other than obviously buying the book is the best way. But even if you request it from your local library, the money does, as I've told you, Toby, but for everybody watching, there is some money that goes to the author and the publishing company. It varies drastically library to library, but it also, once the library gets the book, it's in there and anybody can find it. And that's what's so cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have one more library story I'm going to share.
Yeah.
We had moved into Kansas City from a small town about 100 miles away in mid-Missouri. And we were considering moving from the apartment we'd lived in for the last year. We just, came and lived somewhere, and we realized that really wasn't the neighborhood we wanted. It was kind of a neighborhood for younger people. And so we were kind of thinking that we were going to move. And I went to a writer's workshop at a library up in North Kansas City, which was about a 20 or 30 minute drive. And I got to the library and I fell in love with this library. It had a story center in it. It had a writer's center in it. It had a machine in the front of the library that you could watch where they print books. So you could have the library print your book and bind it. And it was a machine that was kind of clear so you could watch it happening. And I fell in love with this library. And when I was leaving, I noticed there was an apartment complex right next door. And so I got home and I told my husband, I know where I want to move. And we moved into that apartment complex so I could walk to the library every day. So that's how much books and libraries mean to me.
Yeah. I think you're the only person I've met other than my mom that has that level of love for books. My mom is very similar in the way where she always has a new book, always reading a book, always getting books from the library.
Yeah.
Very similar. Well, this turned into a pro-library thing, which
it kind of did, didn't it?
Great. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And so, let me say too about the audiobook. I never listened to an audiobook in my life. I was always the kind who I wanted to pick up a book and hold it, and I want to feel the pages and I want to underline things in it. And I never audiobooks, I didn't get why people would listen to audiobooks. Well, I recorded my audiobook with you and we released it on Amazon. And I thought, well, I should buy a copy because I should listen to how it sounds. And so I listened to it and I thought, I love this. And I've been hooked now. And like I've gotten 2 badges on my Audible account for the number of books I've listened to, and I mean, the last one I listened to was 30 hours long, but I've gotten hooked on audiobooks and I always have an audiobook I'm listening to so I can, it's funny because I do a lot of graphic work on my computer for social media and for the books I'm writing.
Right.
While I'm doing that work, I can be listening to an audiobook at the same time because it's a different part of my brain. And I have just become an audiobook fanatic now, which I think is beautiful too. Especially when the authors read their own books. Oh my, yes. That's just awesome. Yeah.
There's something I think to be said for like, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the most popular version, because I think that's a few, is read by Stephen Fry, who is a famous narrator. So there is something sometimes to be said for, I think, different voices to it. But overall, I agree with you. And I feel like that's more in the fiction realm. Is when that's
I think the important. Memoirs are what mostly are read by the authors more than
memoirs and business books, self-help books. I always liked. I definitely agree with you on that. Okay, so since we have more questions, I'll move.
Yes,
on to the
go
next
ahead.
One. That's okay. But audiobooks, library books.
Yes.
So this one's a little more serious than talking about book consumption. But what does it look like to you to play it safe? And are you playing it safe? And again, I think I already know the answer to this one.
I used to play my whole life safe. I mean, I did everything right. I did everything by the book. And now, a safe is kind of boring and it's kind of dull and it doesn't get you anywhere. So, I love to take risks. I love to, we kind of talked about, I think Michelle, who's the publisher that I work with at Grace Point there, she said to me, you need to have a podcast. And I was like, a podcast? I never thought about having a podcast. What the heck would I do with a podcast? And within a week, I had named it and started my guest list, but I just do things kind of, I don't know if it's spontaneous or just, I just kind of jump in when I see an opportunity. I don't, dibble my toes in the water. I just jump in full force. So, yeah.
I love that. That's exactly how I do things, which is probably why we get along.
Yes.
So I think this is a cool follow-up question. I am going to read the whole thing, but it's a little long. Is we all need to do things legally, play it safe legally. And I mean, there's even a caveat there. A lot of people don't play it safe legally, like when you get into protests and stuff. But in general, we have a certain level that we need to feel like we belong in the world. So what are your thoughts on how you can be vulnerable in a way that shows it's okay to not play it safe all the time while still following the legality that you feel you need to follow?
Well, there's all kinds of ways that you can speak up and not be violating the law. I'm not one for, challenging a police officer. I mean, I think you have to respect authority. It's there for a reason. But you can say anything you want to say without being confrontational and without being disrespectful. And there are so many opportunities in everyday life to be able to speak up and say something about anything. And I, think we should always take those opportunities. That doesn't mean, I don't mean to go out and be shouting at people, but if you're in a conversation with someone and they ask you something and that you have a more profound thought about that, then bring it up. Don't be afraid to talk about the difficult things, because I think we're all looking for inspiration and answers and role models and things to strive towards. And I think every one of us has within us the power to be that for someone else and to, keep that lid closed and keep that light damped doesn't serve the world. So, I think, and, sometimes there's controversial topics like, I do a lot of podcasts about wrongful prosecutions or criminal injustices. And a lot of people, think, well, if they got arrested, they did something wrong. Well, that's not the case. And people don't want to hear about people in prison, honestly, because they're in prison, they're hidden away from the world, and they honestly don't care if they don't have hot water for showers or, it doesn't matter. They're where they're supposed to be because they're bad. They did something wrong. And I think it takes being a true human being to feel compassion for those in the hardest of places and to speak up for them and make sure that they have rights too. So, I think that's the area that I think I make the most waves with, are my thoughts about prisoners and inmates.
I am very much in agreement with you on your thoughts on prisons and inmates, and it breaks my heart. I mean, I think of, I spent in 2016 2 weeks in 3 different mental hospitals, not prison. And then I think of, if you, that was a horrible experience.
Yes.
And I had hot water and I had food and I got to have visitors. I know I had way more freedom than anybody in prison would have. And then I'm like, I can't even imagine what it would be like in there. And it's just, I think, just to bring it back to the question a little bit, is when we look at the Justin Brooks interview we did and the one we did with Chris Turner and everybody, I think those are just really such great examples of a person and a group of people who are standing up for what they believe in a legal way and being firm about it, but without being super confrontational and maybe acting in the same way that their prisoners acted, if you will.
When you're in prison, visits are your lifeline. It's what keeps you sane. It's what keeps you connected to the world. It's what gives you something to look forward to. And, I know we went through this COVID pandemic and everything shut down, but the first thing that the prisons did is just stop visiting altogether. And they also stopped any volunteers from coming in. So there were no kind of educational programs or spiritual programs or creative programs. And people in prison during COVID just sat in their cells. And that is beyond devastating. And they're just now starting to let volunteers back in. And it's been 3 or 4 years. And we're way past the COVID lockdown. But it's just more convenient to not allow those things in. And nobody protests, except the people in prison, but who hears them? No one can hear them. And it's just so disregarded, the rights of a prisoner and the needs of a prisoner. And the sad part is that 80 to 90% of all inmates will be released back into society. So it's in society's best interest that they don't become broken people while they're in prison, because we're going to be back out in our society and we need them to be healthy and whole and contribute to society.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's just, we could do a whole nother episode about that. In fact,
we sure could.
But that really does lead into the next question I have on my list is what is your main goal with this podcast? And I think you kind of just hit on some of it.
Yeah, I think so. My main goal really is to let people know about topics that they've never heard about before, especially when it comes to criminal justice and criminal injustice and mass incarceration and mandatory minimum sentences. A lot of things that people don't understand, even that they exist, what they are, what the impact of them is. So I want to bring those things into the open so that we're more aware, because I believe that a country is only as good as the way it treats its prisoners. That's how we tell what kind of society we have. And we have so much work to do there. At the same time, though, I believe that there are these topics that we just don't talk about because they're difficult, like how to deal with the death of a child, or how to bring your parent home from the hospital and put them in your home and give them the grace to die peacefully. That is so difficult. And, so many other things about, someone surviving a tragic childhood. All these topics that we just don't want to talk about because they're not beautiful and pretty and make you smile. But it's those conversations that make you a broader, more caring, more productive, more constructive member of society. And I think that in talking about these difficult things, it helps us so that when suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where we are experiencing or a loved one is experiencing one of these tragic events, their son being arrested or their daughter being killed by a drunk driver or, whatever, that they've already opened up thoughts about these things in their mind, and they've heard stories from other people who have survived these things and how they've survived them. And so they can draw on that, whether it's happening to them or it's happening to someone they know. They might know the best thing to say to that person to support them when previously they never gave a thought to that particular incident ever happening in their life.
Yeah, so these conversations are so important to have. You mentioned something, I don't know what made me think of this, but Thich Nhat Hanh is famous for saying the way out is in, which I think is so true.
Yes,
It's so easy to just not think about what's inside us and just push it all away. And if we look inside ourselves first and be like, oh my gosh, this is what I don't like. This is what's not, I don't want to keep inside and work on that. And then we can start to get out and fix everything outside of us.
And I think that's so beautiful too. And that's really the lesson I learned in prison, that to free myself, I had to look inside myself and set myself free. I love that. The way out is in. I hadn't heard that till you just said that, but boy, it's so profound.
Thich Nhat Hanh has got so many amazing things like that, but that's the one that has stuck in my mind ever since I heard it.
I love it.
Wow, we're getting deep into first conversations.
Yes, we are.
Just now, right now, this is great. This next one I've got here, you have already kind of answered, but are you teaching, leading, or entertaining, and which do you want to be doing? And I'm just going to say before you answer that, I think to some degree you're doing all three.
Yes, I do think I do all three: teach, lead, and entertain. I was on a podcast once that was a comedy podcast about true crime, and I thought, how can this be funny? But, my story is not funny, but we laughed for 2 hours, and I thought, you know what? It is funny. So I think there's humor in everything, and I think humor helps us get through things. So I think entertainment has a role. I think teaching has a role because other people want us to give them answers so that they know what to do. But where I'm really called is to lead, and I want to be someone that other women follow or other people follow and say, I want to do what she's doing. And so it's almost like being a seed out into the world and you're planting other seeds. And so, everything I do has leading in mind, even though I may be teaching or entertaining at the time.
And I know for sure you fulfill that role because every time you interview somebody that you knew before maybe the podcast happened, they're always talking about how you're an inspiration to them, especially in the author pod you're in. And I know you feel the same way about them too, that they're an inspiration.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that kind of, do you think, your goal for each guest as well? Or what is your goal for each guest?
My goal for each guest is just simply to give them space to tell their story, to give them space to tell about their experience so that their stories can be birthed out into the world. And, a lot of people I interview have been on multiple podcasts. And so on every, so there are stories out there, but I believe in every telling of a story, something tweaks just a little bit. The host asks something in a little bit different way, or the host really hones in on a particular thing that no one else has honed in on. So every time a story's told, it's a new story out into the world. And sometimes, there might be a story that someone tells on my podcast that reaches this particular person who really needed to hear it. And they may have heard it, the same story from someone else, but it didn't click with them. So I try to help bring that clicking in so that, what my guests are talking about, I try to find a way to turn it into a lesson or a moral or a story that can relate to the person that's listening.
Yeah. I think you do that quite well, if I may be so bold to say so. And that's kind of, it's fun how each question is really leading in the next very well right now, which is not intentional. But the next one is, what do you want people to take away or remember from your interactions with your guests?
What do I want people to take away from my interactions with guests? Is that what you said?
What do you want? Like, and I think it's kind of mixed into what is your goal with the podcast? What is the goal with each guest? Like, if people take away something from each episode from the show, what's kind of your goal there?
Well, really my goal is to put these stories out into the world so people can hear them. But I also think, now that I'm thinking about it, I think a goal that's been a subconscious goal is I would like people to see how it's possible to talk to people who've experienced something very difficult and to talk to them about it in a way that brings more depth out of the person you're talking to without hurting them, because sometimes when you're talking to people about difficult things, it's very easy for them to be hurt. And I kind of want them to see that it's possible to talk with these people who've experienced something that you can't comprehend in a way that's loving and positive with that person. So, it's okay to talk about it, and you can learn to talk about it with grace.
So that kind of leads back into your teaching place too, of people listening, of teaching them how to talk to other people, or maybe be receptive to a difficult conversation about themselves. Yeah. This last one is kind of cool. Well, actually, I'm going to ask a bonus question too.
Okay.
But you talked, I remember very specifically with Catherine Bell's interview, but you've talked about it in other places. You're always posting on your social media about the research you have done and continue to do on amazing women who are not well known, who are not in the media. So you've done all this research and all these amazing women. Do you have an overall takeaway or an overall goal maybe of all of that research, what you'd like to see from that?
Well, what I try to do with that, and on my podcast, on my social media, I have Wednesday Women. And so every Wednesday I post about a woman I found from history who's done something amazing. And my goal with those stories is to let people know that these are just regular people. Very rarely do I post about Eleanor Roosevelt or someone that isn't in a normal circle of people. Generally, I try to post about women who are just common women. They don't have any advantages that the rest of us don't have. So my goal is to let them know that anyone can do something to make a difference. You don't have to be powerful. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be important. You can still make a difference. And I think, two of my favorite examples, and they're so totally different examples. But number one, I discovered this beautiful, wonderful little woman who lived in Harlem, New York, and her name was Clara Hale. Clara Hale raised her, I think she had 5 children. I can't remember exactly, but she raised her children. She had a 2-room apartment in Harlem. She was not a wealthy woman. She was not an important woman. She was just a woman trying to get through life the best she could. And in the 80s, there was this great fluctuation of babies being born addicted to drugs. And no one knew what to do with these babies because they were so needy. They cried. You just kind of had to let them go through withdrawals, but, safely. And Clara Hale said, I'll take those babies. And she took them into her little 2-bedroom apartment, and she took in over 1,000 drug-addicted babies.
Wow.
In her mission. And, she was an older woman. She was 50 or 60 when she started doing this. So in the last part of her life, she made such a difference to the world. And she gave these babies love. And somebody asked her once, how do you do that? How do you take care of these drug-addicted babies? And she said, oh, it's so easy. Here's how you do it. You just hold them and you love them. And I think that's such a beautiful example. And any single one of us has the power to do just that. And the other woman that I really have sticks in my mind is a woman named Virginia Hall. And she was an American. She grew up in the 30s I guess it had to be the 20s or 30s. But she actually came from an affluent family, and she rode horses. But she wanted to do something that made a difference. And she ended up, but this was before the CIA had ever started, and they realized that they needed some behind the scenes intelligence in France when the Nazis had invaded. And so she went to Britain. She wanted to be a diplomat. She wanted to, work in an embassy and be a diplomat. And so she studied different languages. Well, she had an accident while she was hunting, and she got her leg caught in a barbed wire fence. And as she was trying to get her leg unhooked, her gun discharged, and she shot herself in the lower leg. And this was when she lived in London, and her leg had to be amputated at the knee. And she didn't let that stop her. She even named her prosthetic leg was Cutbirth was its name. And when they were looking for people to go into France and join the French resistance, she wanted to go. And the OSS in Britain said, well, you can't go. You only have one leg. And she said, I'm going. And she went through all their training and passed. She beat people who had two legs. And so she ended up going into France. For years, she was hidden in the French resistance, and she led a couple groups. She was so good. And at one time, she had to escape the Nazis, and she climbed the Alps with her prosthetic leg that was broken. This woman just didn't let herself be stopped. And in the end, it was her team behind the scenes who really made the invasion at Normandy a success, because they knew it was coming, this D-Day invasion. And their role was to blow up all the roads so that Germany couldn't send reinforcements to the beach once the Allies landed. And they were successful in that. So really, it was because of her and her team that landing was successful. And nobody even knew her name. And in fact, she won an award when she got back to the United States, and she just put it in a box in a drawer. And she said, rewards don't mean anything to me. And the book I read about her, I was in the bookstore walking by, and I was looking for a book about some woman of importance. And I saw this book on the shelf, and it said, A Woman of Little Significance. And it was her story. And I was so immersed in her story. And, when she won her award, when she got back to the United States, it was some big, big award, like the Medal of Honor or something. I don't know what it was. I can't remember. But she said, I don't want to be known for what I did. What I did, I was able to do because I was a woman of no significance. Because she was hidden in the resistance as this insignificant woman. And that just stuck with me, that sometimes you can be significant by being insignificant. And I thought that was such a powerful message. So those are two of my favorite women in my Wednesday Women research.
I've heard those stories briefly, but that was more in depth than I've heard of those. And those are powerful stories.
Yes, they are.
If I may, what I hear your overall goal is with all these women is to some degree showing that no matter where you come from, no matter where you are, you can make an impact in the world.
Yes.
And what it made me think of is there's this kind of meme or quote that goes around social media on occasion. You have the same hours in your day as Beyonce has.
Yes.
And I have I have so much respect for Beyonce. She's so talented. She worked very hard to get where she was. Mm-hmm. But I think that actually is really not a fair comparison, because yes, and with all of Beyonce's money and all of her help that she has, mm-hmm. her hours are very different than ours. Yeah. I think it can be very discouraging. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is where you're at now, you can actually make a huge difference.
You can make a huge difference. We all have it within us.
Even if you don't have all of that.
Right.
Right.
You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have a title. You don't have to have an inroad into some secret organization to make you stronger.
Right.
You can do it on your own. And those are the women that I try to, single out and share with people.
That's so great. So follow Toby Dorr on Instagram and social media. Facebook at Toby Dorr Author, and Instagram at Toby Dorr, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's correct. Uh-huh.
For the Wednesday Women stuff. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was my last serious question, but I think it'd be fun to close with your opening question of what is your favorite color, Toby? And what does that say about you?
What is my favorite color? That's interesting. I love that. So when I was a little girl, I loved pink. I just loved pink. I loved pink. And then there came a time in my life when I got to high school when I realized pink was kind of a girly color and I didn't want to be limited by what girls were limited by. So I chose purple as my favorite color. And purple's been my favorite color forever. And then about 8 years ago, one of my sisters said to me, "But Toby, you always loved pink." And I said, "I don't like pink. I don't love pink. I don't even like pink." And she said, "No, you always loved pink. Everything you did was pink." And I went home and I started thinking about that. And I thought, you know what? I do love pink. Pink is my color. And now it is my favorite color, every shade of pink. And, I use pink as my brand color too. And it's a bold, fierce pink that I use in my brand color. But the cool thing about pink is there's also soft pink. So when you just want to be, some of my interviews, I have to be that really soft pink to talk to someone. And some of the interviews, I have to be that really bold pink. And it's kind of funny. A lot of times when I was working in my corporate career and I was a dog trainer, I used to interview my employees and the people I interacted with. I assigned them to a dog breed because I treat different dog breeds in different ways because, some dogs have different, characteristics, like a border collie. Boy, you just got to give them work to do because they're just all the time. I got to do something. And, a little Chihuahua, you just have to give them some confidence. And so, I used to think of my people in my work environment as dog breeds because, it helped me know how to interact with them best. But it's kind of funny because as I'm telling you this, I'm thinking, I kind of act as the color pink and I have to pick the right shade of pink for the person I'm talking to and be that person. So definitely it's pink. And I'm so glad I've come back to it.
That's so good. I love that so much. Well, those are all the questions I had on my list. So thanks for being on the other side of the camera today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I'm so glad we did this because, I've had people say, well, I want to know more about you in some of these interviews. So I think we've kind of answered that with this episode.
Yeah, I agree.
I love it.
Well, it is at the end of the day, it's fierce conversation with Toby, not with Mark. So I will put the camera and the microphone back to you. Is there anything you want to close out with today?
The one thing that I want people to come away with is that we all have it within us to be the person that someone else needs us to be. And we just need to find our voice and we need to find our place. And don't be afraid to speak up and don't be afraid to reach out because the world's waiting to hear you and the world's waiting to see what you do because the world needs each one of us. Yeah. I think that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Toby. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Mark. This has been a lot of fun. And people got to peek into you, too, because you are kind of the invisible behind-the-scenes guy. And now they kind of, know a little bit about who Mark is. So I think that's beautiful. Yeah. Thanks for doing this. I've had a great time.
I've been interviewed on a podcast. Thanks, Toby.
Okay. Bye, Mark. Thank you for listening to Fierce Conversations with Toby. We appreciate all the support you can give. And I'd like to share 4 ways that really help our show. 1, subscribe to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/fierce conversations, where 10% of our proceeds are used to provide workbooks to women in prison. 2, like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and watch by clicking the plus, thumbs up, or heart button. Pressing subscribe on YouTube as well helps even more. 3, share this episode with your friends and family by telling them about it and post it on your social media accounts. 4, write a review on whatever platform you're using to listen to this episode. Your support is truly what keeps this show going. The show notes contain links to our fierce team, Mark, myself, and Lisa, and this episode gives you a little bit more insight into what it really takes to keep a podcast going. Fierce Conversations with Toby is created and hosted by Toby Dorr and produced by Number 3 Productions, a division of Grace Point Publishing. Music created and arranged by Lisa Plass, owner of From the Top Music Studio. This is Fierce Conversations with Toby. Escape your prison